This clip is to introduce a proposed document management system dreamt up by the Salisbury trainers. What we're suggesting is that rather than having documents just saved in the Z drive at the moment with no particular nomenclature, we thought we might try to introduce something that was a little more structured and something that linked all the relevant information and documentation from the very top to the very bottom in a way that we could find it. So what we're suggesting here is a document framework consisting of 3 major levels, and we think this will provide effective planning, operation and control of strategic and operational processes. So looking at our triangle here, what we're saying is we envisage that there would be a quality management system with a management system manual, and that would provide all the company level policy, and it would provide interpretation and guidance on applicable legislation. And that would rest in the top level here of this system, where all the reference materials like acts, regulations, codes of practice, etc. would all sit. And then below that there would be the quality management system, which provides all our standards and processes. And then we would have procedures in that next level down. And finally, all the work instructions, forms, checklists, all those other documentation. And what we're proposing is this would all be housed in one database or one spreadsheet where is available to everybody and that is searchable, so we can find anything that we're looking for. So what we're suggesting is that we have controlled documents. We've mentioned this down here. A controlled document is a reference document which through the course of its life cycle might be reviewed, modified, distributed many times. And I'm sure we've all seen documents like that in our day-to-day work. So what we're suggesting is that to manage this document system, we would have a document management procedure, and that would control how things are done. So the document management procedure would define the controls needed to approve documents, so to make sure they're adequate prior to being issued. It would review and update as necessary and reapprove the documents. It would detail how we ensure that changes and current revision status of documents are identified. It will ensure that relevant versions of applicable documents are available at the point of use at any time, so nobody's using an old version. It would ensure that documents remain legible and readily identifiable. It would ensure that documents of external origin are determined by the organisation to be necessary for planning and operation of the business are identified and they're available for distribution, and that's controlled. And this procedure would also prevent the unintended use of obsolete documents, which can be quite embarrassing. Obviously, to run that, we would need a responsible officer, and they would maintain document control. So everything would go through that person. The way we've designed this, we've made it very quick to do that, but we still think that somebody needs to be running it. Basically, they're going to be the librarian. And that document access should be managed through a centralised document library, a database, or some electronic library where we can all access things. So we've come up with a proposed structure, and what we've broken this down into a number of levels. What we're saying is that at the high level management level, those people who are looking at the vision, they're planning 5 years out and perhaps even more, all those strategic documents are documented and developed and utilised by senior management, and they're defined as strategic policies and procedures. Obviously they have those things. So a strategic policy provides the framework for the development of operational policies. So this is the policy at the very top from which we interpret our operational policies. Similarly, strategic procedures provide the process for operational procedures. And then below that, at the level where we trainers operate, we would have operational policies. And that's an interpretation of the board's strategic policy into an operational policy within which we all function. And then below that again, some operational procedures, which provide the practical process of how we do things, and they're day-to-day things applied by staff everywhere. And what we're suggesting is that we have standard coding names for these procedures and policies. So if you look at a strategic policy, that would have CA, pretty obvious, S for strategic, POL for policy, the next consecutive number, and the name of the policy. So that would never change. Regardless of how many times the board may change that policy, that name would stay the same. Coming down to the level that we operate at as trainers, we would have operational policies. So that would be CA, POL, notice no S in front, next consecutive number allocated by the librarian, and the name of the policy. So if we think about privacy policy, the privacy of our students' information, there would be an operational policy about that we could refer to get our heads around how does CA think about that. Then we would come down to an operational procedure, and that would be coded CA, PRO for procedure, next available number, and the name of the procedure. And that obviously is going to tell us how we do things. Then we would come down to operational forms, CA, FOR for form, next available number, and then the name. So thinking again about privacy, this would be the privacy form that we recently had sent out to us by email. So that would be in there, so we could look it up, we could go and search for it. And if necessary, we could have checklists, CHK, schedules, particularly if there's times where things have to be done, SCH, templates, TEM, registers, all those sorts of things, but a code for each thing so we know exactly what the document we're looking at is intended to achieve. Then we would have, here's a document map. I won't go through this in a great detail, but there would be a central database, this document library, and internal users would access that, ASQA auditors could access it. This librarian person here would archive some records when they're no longer in use. They would control the documents, so they'd have all the control over all these things. We, the users, or anybody else through ASQA or anyone else, can identify change that needs to happen. It goes through the librarian and document control and goes out through the design and business development people. So pretty straightforward stuff. So that's the overview of what we envisage about how things will be done. Let's go now to have a closer look at how it operates. So we're looking here at the procedure around how we think this could work. So what we're saying is this is going to define the process for the creation, the maintenance, the continual improvement control of the CA's management system documents. So all the documents that are in the library will follow this procedure. And where a procedure makes reference to a particular document, the document ID will be displayed in bold, and there will be a hyperlink to that document. So if a particular form, say the privacy form, makes reference to the privacy policy, privacy legislation, the privacy procedure for CA, all of those would be in the document at the bottom in blue with a hyperlink so you could get to it. So reference documents, in a particular procedure, it would say the following documents are related to this procedure, and it would list them. There's the name and there's the link to get to it. So we can always go back and find all the other related documents very quickly. Each document would identify the responsibilities. Who's the document owner? Who's the document controller? Who's the author? Who's the person in management in CA who's responsible? All the employees, everybody's responsibilities would be listed in the procedure. You'll notice here we've also got it in the footer. Controlled documents would be anything within the quality management system, all the policies, procedures, formal compliance records, work instructions, registers, forms, etc. And then there would be a master document register. And at the moment, because we don't have databases in CA, we're working on an Excel spreadsheet, and that would be Quality Management System Register number 1, master document, managed by the librarian to record all the documents. And the prototype that we've developed has documents in there, and it's searchable. So if you want to find something on privacy, you can actually key in search for privacy, and it will find everything related to that, and you can choose which one you want. Document identification, as we said in our looking at our first document, all the documents are identified by a title, a control number, the document ID, version number, and the date approved. So this is how it would work. This is looking at a procedure. QMS, Quality Management System, CA in front of it, Management System Identifier, document type, PRO for procedure, document number, 002, document as in the name of the document. So a very simple way of identifying content. Again, a bit more detail about the codes and what type of documents they are. The review and the approval, as we said, would go through a librarian. And then the copies would be made available in the master document file in the library where everybody could see them. Not necessarily in PDF as we've originally stated there. And then a bit more about the library there. You can read up about what we envisage is that it would be either a database or a major spreadsheet that contains everything in the Z drive where everybody can go and find it, and you can access anything that you're looking for. Where you want to create a new document, you could propose the development of a new document. You can draft it all up yourself. There'll be templates available in the library for you to use. That goes through then to the librarian, who would identify, well, through the team leader to the librarian, who would have a look at it and identify who needs to approve this. Maybe there's something politically sensitive in there that needs approval or something like that, but somebody higher up in the organisation would have a look, and at that point it would be going in as a draft, and it would be held in a particular part of the library as a draft. Amendments and version control all handled by the librarian, who would be maintaining the version control at the bottom here. So we would know exactly when things change. What we envisage is that if a document is called, like we've got down here, Quality Management System Plan 02 Journey Management, if that's going to be updated and it's now version 1.2, in the footer it would say 1.2, version 1.2, so you would know the date it was updated. But the name would always stay the same. It would not have the version in it, because that way we all know we're working on the latest version. If what we do is we go in, we find the journey management plan, we get that out, we know we're working on the latest version. When it is archived, it gets the date that it was archived added to it, which is done by the librarian and put into the archive. So we can see when that form ceased to be active, and we would always know the one we're looking for, regardless of what comes up in the search, is always the one that ends with the name. It does not have a version control on the end. I hope that makes sense. Document reviews, the system also has a date for either archiving or review when it needs to be checked. Obsolete documents obviously would get archived. As I said earlier, the version management, if you're developing a draft of some new procedure you would like to implement, it will have in it initial draft and draft in the status in the version control on the document. So now let's finally go to our final document, and this is a template for a procedure. So you'd have your introduction, what's the scope, what's it for, that sort of thing. What reference documents does it refer to? All those hyperlinks to standards, policies, procedures, maybe even a standard from ASCA or whatever. Then your headings and your text, and maybe put in a table or two of whatever you want to say about how things are done. All the footer at the bottom to be filled in. And then there's your version management and any appendix. Can't imagine why you'd want those, but we've put it in with question marks just in case you do. So I hope that's helped to explain exactly what uh, Salisbury's trying to do with this, and